All right, we are live. We're going to kick off this city council meeting for Lake Stevens City Council. It is January 13th, 2026. We are down at the mill live, and we are also recording this meeting tonight. We'll later post it on our YouTube channels. With that, I would ask all to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, great. Council Vice President, if that's okay, President, can we get an agenda?
Can it be to go?
That'd be great.
Okay. Could I get approval of the agenda, please?
Mayor, could we do?
Oh, I'm sorry. We need to do a roll
We do a
call
roll call,
first. I'm
please.
sorry.
Yep.
Before you do 4, you have to do 3. So, numerical order.
Councilmember Jorstad,
I'm present.
Councilmember Donahue,
Present.
Councilmember Packard,
Present.
Councilmember Edwards,
Present.
Councilmember Shipman,
Present.
Councilmember McManus,
Present.
Councilmember Araya.
Okay, great. We've got everybody. So, Council Vice President, can we get an approval of the agenda, please?
Okay, could I get approval of the agenda, please?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda. Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, we have an agenda.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Let's go to guest business. Chief Bezizzo. We got some great oaths going on tonight.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm honored tonight to be here for a promotion and a swearing in of a new officer. If I could have Michael Hingen come forward. So Michael is our new commander as of January 1st, 2026, and I'm excited to have him as part of the command staff. Michael started his law enforcement career in 2006 when he was hired as a reserve police officer with Granite Falls Police Department. From there, he was hired full-time in March of 2008. During his time with Granite Falls, he worked as a patrol officer, also as a handler in the narcotic canine team with Jackson. In January 2013, Michael lateraled to the Lake Stevens Police Department. While an officer, he's been involved in several different things, including the following: field training officer, corporal, U.S. Marshal VOTF, which stands for Violent Offender Task Force, instructor with the firearms de-escalation, force on force, and less lethal. Michael then in May of 2020 was promoted to the rank of sergeant. As a sergeant, he was involved in many things, including the Citizens Academy, which he coordinated and handled throughout the last 4 years. I think we went on our 4th year together. 4 years. Yeah, he did a great job with the community event that we have there. Yeah, alumni. Excellence of Policing Task Committee lead, firearms training program lead, and force response training lead. In October of 2023, Michael was assigned as a detective sergeant. This role included managing high-profile, sensitive, and complex cases in Lake Stevens. Michael was instrumental in bringing needed technology upgrades to investigations and the department's technologies such as Guardian background software, First Two, and other digital evidence storage systems. What I appreciate about Michael, he looks at the process and doesn't attack the people, and brings that process to make it an improvement and make it better for us and more sensitive to time management and the cost. Michael has been awarded the following Officer of the Year in 2015, 2017, 2022. He's also previously awarded the Snohomish County Sheriff's Award and 2024 Outstanding Supervisor Award. With that, I'd like to have Michael introduce his family that's here and have the mayor come forward and swear him in.
Well, my wonderful wife, Michelle, I wouldn't be here without her. And then Brian, my daughter, and then Barrett, one of my sons, and then, this is little Charlotte, we still live in Charlotte. And not here is, my son, Maverick. So.
All right. So your daughter's going to pin your badge on, I understand.
This is gonna be it.
All right.
This is her big moment.
Come on up.
You ready? Okay.
You got it.
Nice job.
Great job.
Space one. There's still more.
Come on up.
All right, raise your hand. I, Michael Henderson,
I, Mike Hutchins,
do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear or affirm
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution and laws
the Constitution and laws
of the United States
of the United States
and the state of Washington,
and the state of Washington,
the ordinances of the city of Lake Stevens,
the ordinances of the city of Lake Stevens,
and the mission and regulations
mission and regulations
of the Lake Stevens Police Department,
of the Lake Stevens Police Department,
and that I will faithfully
and will faithfully
and impartially perform
and impartially perform
and discharge the duties
discharge the duties
as the Lake Stevens Police Commander
as the Lake Stevens Police Department
according to law.
according to law.
Whatever spirit.
I gotta walk.
Congratulations. Good to see you again.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Congratulations. Awesome. Thank you.
Next up, I call up Ryan Graves and his family. Come on up too. You can come up to be with him. All right, great. So Ryan was born and raised in Kennewick, Washington, and the eldest of 3 children. He feels very fortunate to have been serviced, modeled in his community by his father, who was a local church pastor, and his grandfather, who was the fire chief. Ryan went on to earn a degree in theology and with a passion to help others entered the ministry, eventually serving as a lead pastor. In 2015, Ryan located with his family and began working in the tech industry. Ryan currently resides in Snohomish, Washington with his wife of 19 years and their 2 children. Outside of work, Ryan loves spending time with his family, supporting his children's sports activities. Additionally, he enjoys cycling outdoors and home projects. His passion for public safety and desire to serve lead him to enter law enforcement, where he graduated from the Basic Law Enforcement Academy in January 2025, serving with the city of Redmond for a short time. Ryan is excited about his new opportunity in law enforcement and the challenges in serving and protecting the citizens of Lake Stevens. With that, I'll have Ryan introduce his family.
My wife, Nell, 19 years, daughter Eliana, and my son Ethan.
And Ethan skipped basketball practice to be here with dad, so I'm proud of it.
Raise your hand. I, Ryan Graves.
I, Ryan Graves.
Do solemnly swear or affirm
You solemnly swear and affirm
that I will support and defend
I will support and defend
the Constitution and laws
the Constitution and law
of
of
the United States
the United States
and the state of Washington,
and the state of
the
Washington,
ordinances of the city of Lake Stevens,
ordinances of the state,
the city, and the mission and regulations of the Lake Stevens Police Department,
Lake Stevens Police
and
Department.
that I will faithfully
I will faithfully
and impartially perform
impartially perform
and discharge the duties
and discharge the duties
of a Lake Stevens police officer
of Lake Stevens Police
according to the law, to the best of my ability.
for the law of the best of my ability.
Grant.
And with that, go walk the dog.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Awesome.
With that, this has been an exciting couple of weeks with promotions and getting a new officer. That currently leaves us with a corporal opening, a detective opening, a traffic officer opening, and a police officer opening. So we're down 4 right now. So thank you for your time and I appreciate it. And I'll see you in a couple of weeks when we do the corporal.
Great. Thanks, Chief.
Chief.
All right, with that, we're going to go into citizens' comments. Can we first look online to see if there's anyone who wishes to provide citizens' comments to the council tonight?
Anyone in the digital audience that would like to address council, please raise your hand and I'll bring you in. I don't see anyone.
Okay, great. And then I have one green card. Ray, you are up to bat, my friend.
Okay, I'm Ray Welp. I live up here on 117th. And I had a whole thing all printed out that I was going to read, but I'm just going to wing it. And I'm here to speak about some things that I've observed at like the December 9th meeting, and then again last week on January 6th. And I know it's been online and through social media, and what I'm speaking about is the perception out there that the council is sold out to developers or real estate interests because of the money that everybody's received for campaign donations. And one of the statements made was that there's more education needed, the transparency is not there. The perception that the previous council was bought off by developers, builders, and real estate interests, and that there was no control by the council. And one council member went on to say that they just absolutely didn't agree with that. So my question is, if that's the perception out there, is anything being done to educate the people or to show them that that in fact is not the case? And the one that really made me want to say something about this was at last week's meeting, when we're looking for representatives to go to certain other interests within the city, a council member was questioned whether he could be objective because of his donations on that board. And, as near as I can tell, he got a couple $100, and lots of other folks up here have gotten thousands. So if we're running that particular person through that lens, as he said, why not the rest? And what are we doing to help the community to understand that in fact it's not that way? So that's all I have.
Thanks, Ray. Appreciate your comments. I don't have anybody else on here, so let's move forward then with council business. Council Vice President, why don't you run?
Okay. Angie, can you hear me? Councilmember Georgestad?
I can, thank you.
Let's go ahead and start with you.
Great, thank you so much. I attended my first agenda setting meeting on behalf of council yesterday morning. I'm excited to be a part of this, and we'll be bringing more information to council as those meetings transpire. Had a great conversation with our city manager around council procedures for travel. So we'll be having more conversation about that and how that's going to play out for 2026. And I'm looking forward to the Snohomish County cities. Their first meeting dinner is Thursday night. They'll be electing new representatives for their different boards and positions. So looking forward to being able to attend that as well. I think that's it. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Packard?
Nothing for me tonight.
Councilmember Edwards?
Yeah, I was fortunate to be able to attend the Parks Board meeting last night. And it sounds like they are working on their first official draft of the pros plan. So we've got to go through that, and it looks great. There's so much amazing information that's in there. It really was eye-opening for me to be able to see all of the work that's going into our parks here in Lake Stevens. So that was really awesome to be there. They did say there was one opening on the Parks Board. So I would love to encourage citizens to sign up for an interview for that. And then they also mentioned that there may be an opening on the Lake Stevens Arts and Parks Foundation Board. So that's also something that I would encourage people to look into. But other than that, they got to approve the rules for the new synthetic fields, and then also the rules for the new pickleball courts. So that was great. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Donahue?
Nothing for me.
Councilmember McManus?
Yeah, the opportunity on Monday to attend the sewer commission meeting. My primary goal was to just go in and, introduce myself as the new member of the team. It was a very fast meeting. They were over about 15 minutes, so nothing really of substance talked about, but I did get to meet some of the folks that I didn't know on that commission. So
Thank you. Councilmember Arat?
Yes, no boards or commissions reports, but I do have one important note regarding a project in Everett that will affect all of us, and it's exciting. The city of Everett received a grant that they're adding money to rechannelize northbound to eastbound trestle and westbound to southbound. So it's a $10.5 million project. The grant was for $10 million. It's going to, it's on the City of Everett's council agenda for tomorrow. Design is scheduled to begin this year in 2026, anticipated construction in 2027. So that will mean that 2 lanes will, northbound will be able to go on the trestle and 2 lanes from the trestle southbound. So I thought that was exciting. So that's all I have.
Thank you. And nothing for me this week.
All right, great. Good reports. Appreciate everyone's work this week. Real quickly, just we've been just having a lot of meetings, getting ready for the session that's going on. Make sure that you're looking at Justin's emails to kind of update you on what's going on. I also recommend on Fridays at 12:30, AWC does a breakdown of the week as far as legislative session topics for AWC. So I recommend that as well. You can go on their website and sign up for that. You get a little email and an invite to the meeting, and it's very informative. Lots of interesting ideas being floated around in this session. And we need to keep an eye on many of them because they will impact. I'll bring one up. One of the items that is being talked about is a carte blanche, any commercial zoning mandating cities that they can put residential, high-rise residential in your commercial without any say-so. So when this is a great testament of overreach by Olympia on local government. And when our citizens get upset, and rightfully so, about the growth in our city, what they need to realize is it's bills like that that mandate cities to grow like that, that make it so that this council has zero control over any of those growth issues when it's mandated from Olympia that you could put high-rise apartments all the way down the south side of 20th Street, which is all zoned for commercial, which then takes away from our sales tax revenue that we absolutely need, right? So that's a great example of overreach by Olympia on local government and taking control of our destiny as a city and our character as a city. I jokingly say, any more these days, the council gets to choose blue or gray drapes, and that's about it, because the state just mandates everything so much within our growth. So keep an eye on that bill. I will be fighting against it.
Mayor, can I ask a question? So,
Sure.
right, as we get some of these emails and like AWC sent something out in particular where they said, hey, if you've got a concern, reach out. How is the council, or how can we be involved in kind of a strategic or coordinated initiatives to engage the state as opposed to us individually doing it? What is the city already doing? How can we work together on that?
Yeah. So when bills like that come up, for example, that one came up today.
Sure.
From Justin, then he pings me and Gene, and if it's a housing thing, it's Russ, or depending upon whose lane it is, he'll ping us and be like, hey, do you have comments on this? And then we'll provide comments back. And that's usually not only through him, but it's also through AWC.
Okay.
And, any other pertinent people. So absolutely, like if you see something, like shoot it to us. So that's a one voice kind of thing, I think is important. But if you see something out there that we're not seeing, or that is pertinent or something that you want to talk about, then shoot us an email, and then we'll kind of figure out the city game plan on that idea, if that works for everybody.
Thank you.
Cool. All right, let's move forward then to city department report. We do have one report, and that's going to be Barb.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Good evening. I'm Barb Stevens. I'm your finance director, if we haven't formally met. I wanted to just quickly walk through the voucher packets, since this is going to be your first opportunity to review voucher packets for some of you. So I did want to walk through that really quickly, and I did hear there was a couple of questions on some things. So, okay, I'm going to actually use the voucher packet that's in your council packet and kind of walk through this for you. So this is your blanket voucher. So it includes all of the expenses made during the specific period, and that's generally since the last voucher packet. This one you'll see later is for the period of 12/12 through 12/30, and I'll point that out to you. So this one, it's for a 2025 voucher packet. It is the summarization here. This is the cover page of the blanket voucher, and it has the payroll, direct deposits, EFTs, so electronic fund transfers, the claims, which are the checks, and then it includes void checks, and then the total voucher approval. So underneath that, there's a certification that's made by the auditing officer stating that the payments were for legitimate expenses and for goods received and services rendered. This designation as auditing officer is codified in Lake Stevens Municipal Code, and as the finance director, it gives me the authority to audit and pay the claims, provided that within 1 month of the payment, the blanket voucher comes back to council on consent agenda for approval of the claims. So that's why you see these on the consent agenda. The next thing, let me get a next page here. So by the way, this I pulled this from there, and it's about 20 pages, and we're not going to go through the whole thing, obviously. But so this is the cover page with the expenditures included by type that are throughout the packet. At the end, so we break it down, personnel costs. The next few lines are all like benefits, payroll taxes, excise taxes, and then we get into supplies, professional services, and then we try to highlight some large purchases, and normally those do end up in the capital realm. So here you have chamber and infrastructure work that was done, some work on Main Street improvement project, sidewalk ADA project. So we try to call out some of those larger things that you see. And then the total you have here, the 1.455, that is the total expenditures in the city for that period. And you will see that this total does agree with the blanket voucher cover page at the top. Let me go back one. So you see those two numbers do agree. They do not agree to the, can you see the whole page? No, of course not. I'm going to lose this. So as you can see, it doesn't match the total here because this does not include the payroll. So that's the one thing that's missing from this. Let me see if I can move this. Okay. Okay. So on this is the checks approved. This includes checks and electronic fund transfers. So it will note in the column. Gosh, this is not working out very well. Normally I have my separate screen, so I can do this. So this includes your vendor name, invoice number, account name, description, and your check numbers and your amounts. And so in the check column, the EFTs, let me get there, are noted as EFT. So that it doesn't have an actual check number, it just says EFT. So going back to here, sorry, is there a different way I can share this? I can still see. Of course not. Let me make it all the way big and then come here. Sorry, I meant to make this a little easier. Okay, there we go. So on this one you have, let's see. So, I mentioned, you can see this is for the period of 12/12 to 12/30. So that is noted at the top. And then the account numbers. So this is when people often get confused is in the account number portion. This is the accounts that are prescribed by the Washington State Auditor's Office through our budget accounting reporting system. So they prescribe the numbers. The first three numbers are the fund, then the department, and then prescribed numbers. And so it's for us, we're kind of looking at different ways to maybe present this report to you so it's more user friendly. So we will be kind of mocking up, some of my department staff are mocking up a couple of different ways that maybe we can look at removing the account coding and then adding a summary at the bottom that shows expenses by department. So over here, I've kind of circled checks. So we attempt to process one check per vendor for multiple invoices. So you can see the Ace Hardware has 15 invoices and one check. There are some that will look like duplicate payments. I've circled one down here. So right here, you can, oops, I went too far. It looks like a duplicate payment, but that is just because the vendor, the invoice, the check number, amount, everything is the same. But in this case, the expenses were separated between two general ledger account codes. So two of those budget prescribed numbers by the state auditors. And so they're just separated between two account codes, in this case, two different funds. Another thing I wanted to sort of point out is our like business card. This is kind of a vendor name that sometimes confuses people. This is our citywide credit card. It's Bank of America, who's our current city credit card provider. And these are broken out by card holder and the month as the invoice name and invoice number. So just a couple of things on that. Those are utilized usually mostly for online purchases and travel and training expenses. So a couple other things I wanted to note. In the description column, there might be some questions when you have the account number and then the account name. The account name, we have account coding to make it easier for us to understand which account it's in. The top one there, it says LE uniform clothing. That's law enforcement uniform clothing. Down below, we have AD staff development. That's administrative staff development. HR, human resource, PK, park. And so this is our ways of making it easier for us to understand what we're actually spending the money on. So that's kind of an overview of this. One interesting thing that happens at the beginning of the year, let me get down these pages, is you will see multiple blanket vouchers for approval in your packet. So so based on our accounting and our reporting standards, we have to hold our books open for 20 days into the new year. And so we have to hold our expenditure books, not revenue, expenditure books only, open till the 20th of the year. And so we are still processing 2025 invoices right now for things that were ordered, purchased in 2025, but we're going to pay for in 2026. So those are required to get paid in 2025. So that's why you will see a 2025 voucher packet and a 2026 voucher packet. So you'll usually see this twice in January, sometimes 3 times, depending if we have an extra special meeting that we can get a few extra invoices into. So as I mentioned, we're trying to work on making some changes to the layout. I'm not sure how useful all of this detail is to you as council. You're approving it together. And so my department's kind of working on mocking up a couple of different ways we can look at this so it's not quite so much information. So I'll bring those back to council. Also, if you have any questions when you go through these voucher packets, please reach out to me and I can answer questions for you. I know there was one question that had come up regarding the 2026 voucher packet. I know it sounds a little odd, but for Costco membership under staff development. So again, it's a coding issue. The coding here is the second to the last. So the 49 code is a service code, miscellaneous code. And so all of our memberships used to go into a miscellaneous code, but we no longer use a miscellaneous code. All of our travel, training, subscription memberships all go into a staff development code. So it's just a coding. That's why I think maybe the codes aren't the most important thing for council to see. Maybe they're not as helpful. So if you have questions on your vouchers as you're going through them, please reach out to me and I will go through and I will figure it out. And if I don't know right offhand, like what a certain vendor is or what a certain tool is, I can reach out to the department, get you the answers and give them back out to council.
Great. Any quick questions for Barb?
How much fidelity is required by law to provide? Like, do you have to provide this level of detail?
No.
Okay.
No, I don't.
All right, great. Thanks for the report, Barb.
Thanks.
Can I get a motion to pass the consent agenda, please?
I make a motion to pass the consent agenda.
I'll second it.
Okay, I've got a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
I,
Aye.
And any noes? All right, pass the consent agenda. Let's move to a public hearing. We're gonna have a public hearing tonight on the Fairleigh annexation, and David's gonna lead that. So I'm gonna go ahead and open the public hearing at this time.
All right. Thank you, Mayor, Council. David Levitan, Principal Planner. So we are here tonight for a public hearing for a proposed annexation. So I just have a really quick presentation. We also have the applicant's representative that is available via Zoom if there are any questions for the applicant. But so just a little bit about the proposed annexation. This is a direct petition annexation. So as spelled out in the staff report, this is the most common method of annexation in the state of Washington. This is where property owners are requesting to be annexed from within our unincorporated UGA into the city proper. So there are a couple steps that are involved. This one is for 3.1 acres there on the south side of 20th Street Southeast. So start with require adoption of a resolution to accept the 10% petition. So basically property owners representing 10% of the assessed value within the annexation area are required to submit signatures, and those are required to be accepted by the city council. That was done on August 26th. It's followed up by a 60% petition. So 60% of the property owners, as far as the assessed value, that was accepted on October 28th, adopted by resolution, and that assigned the existing pre-designation. So basically what was established through the 2024 comprehensive plan established pre-designations for all of the areas outside of the city, but within our urban growth area or UGA. So that was done back at the end of October. Just a couple of administrative items because there are no proposed changes to land use or zoning. This is exempt from the State Environmental Policy Act. Once the resolutions, the 10% and the 60% are done, there's a notice of intent that needs to be submitted with the Snohomish County Boundary Review Board. That was done back on December 18th. And then on the following day, the applicant had requested and the city had supported their request to waive BRB review under a certain provision in the RCW that applies to smaller properties that are less than 10 acres and less than $2 million in valuation. The chair of the BRB accepted that waiver request, and so the annexation is now eligible for adoption via city ordinance. So as far as the public notice for this public hearing, this is a type 5 land use application. Public notice was provided as required by the Lake Stevens Municipal Code. We have not received any public comments either in writing or anyone calling the city. There is an opportunity for the public to provide oral testimony this evening. And then as noted, the applicant's representative is available to answer any questions if there are any. So staff is recommending that the city council approve ordinance 1213, which is attached as attachment 1. It would approve the Fairleigh West annexation, adopt those existing land use designations, and then as detailed in the findings and in the other sections of the ordinance, require assumption of a proportionate share of the city's indebtedness. And so with that, I am happy to answer any questions.
David, am I recalling correctly on this one that both parcels have the same owner? So the 10%, 60% was kind of a formality in this case?
Yeah, and it's really just one site. It's got two parcels just because it's got kind of different tax codes associated with it. So it's really just one parcel, but it's kind of split into two separate parcels.
Thank you.
Do the council members understand the UGA in that area where we're talking about looking at? Can you pull up a UGA, pull up the map on just to show the overall UGA that's in that area?
That was one of my questions was what is the status of the property around this property?
Do we have a good UGA?
Peter Condos. So the UGA, which is the area that we're required to plan for in advance of potential annexation in the future. Let me scroll this over a little bit. So the property that we're talking about is kind of right here in the middle, just off of 20th Street. This entire area that's south of the blue line and then down to the purple line, that's all within the city's urban growth area. So the assumption is at some point that would be annexed by the city. The area north of the blue line was annexed back in 2021, a large chunk of that as part of the Southeast interlocal annexation. So all of the remainder of this area down here south of 20th, kind of east of the orange area and all the way up to this orange area over here, which was annexed back in 2022, that will remain outside of the city. It would just be this one parcel.
So a little context, that's about the last bit of UGA that we can expand the city into. There's a little piece on the north side, but that is all that's left for us to be able to expand as a city.
Is there a minimum that area that would be annexed in a city in a process? It seems like the process is really convoluted. Can any property owner along that blue line say, I want to annex in the city, and we'll have like a little zigzag portion as property owners just want to annex? Is there a minimum?
If they really need to be directly contiguous, so this one is directly adjacent. If somebody, say down here, just wanted to do a spot annexation, that generally wouldn't be something.
But anyone south of that blue line on 20th.
Correct.
Any property owner individually can go through this process regardless of the size of the parcel?
They can, correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and that would be if they want to go through that direct petition. When we had done, there are other annexation methods as well. We had used the interlocal annexation method to annex a much larger area north of 20th Street Southeast. And there was some discussions at previous council meetings before you joined the council, as far as there was some interest in, are there adjacent property owners that would, want to be annexed as well? And the applicant and their representatives had reached out to adjacent properties as well, but there wasn't any interest as far as expanding the annexation area.
I have a question. It's zoned for the 8 to 12. Is this the same property that was being discussed about changing to the multifamily? That was a different one? Okay.
No, this is, as far as part of the development agreement, or which one are we talking about?
A few meetings ago, there was some talk about swapping zones from one location to another.
Yes.
I was just wondering if this was part of that.
No, both of those properties are already in the city. One is north of 20th on 99th Avenue Southeast, and the other is just north of the Burger King and kind of Tom Thumb.
Okay. Thank you.
What other questions do we have for David?
In the exhibit B, where I had a hard time finding the property when I was looking at it, where you have the map of the property on the right side, is that supposed to be 119th Avenue Southeast, not 19th on the map?
Oh, the one that's marked as 19th Avenue Southeast. I think that's
119th.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think that must be a kind of a remnant of a past street name or classification. But as far as kind of the rest of that and the corresponding legal description is.
Yeah.
Do we expect minimal impact to like city services? It's easy to reach since it's right across from city land now. So police, fire, that's not going to be an issue.
No, we've planned for, city services for our entire UGA as far as being eligible for annexation. So we are required to demonstrate the ability to serve our UGA.
Thank you.
Anything else? All right, great. Great, David. Good stuff. I'm going to go ahead and open up the public hearing then for comments on just this subject, just this public hearing. Is there anybody online who wishes to provide citizens' comments?
Is there anyone digitally that would like to provide comments specifically to this public hearing? Nope, I don't see anyone.
Okay, and is there anybody in the audience who wishes to provide comments? Seeing none, we will close the comments portion of the public hearing. David, any more comments?
I do not. Thank you.
Okay, I'll open up the floor to discussion. And so what we're looking for tonight is an adoption of ordinance 1213. Is there any discussion amongst the council members? If not, can I get a motion to adopt it, leave it alone, or bring it back another day?
I'll make a motion to adopt ordinance 1213 as written.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion to adopt ordinance 1213 and a second. Is there any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? Okay. Good work on that, David. Ordinance 1213 passes. Let's move to action item 1A, and it's going to be the Cedarwood Recreation Consultant Contract. Ms. Meese.
Good evening, City Council. Tonight, I bring before you the planning or design contract for the Cedarwood property. This property was transferred to the city in 2021, and staff has been working through feasibility and community input to come to a plan, a framework of the items and the amenities that were prioritized by the community. We are looking to hire the design team to get us bid-ready documents. So that includes all of the planning, cultural resources, and stormwater plans to go forward to build. So this contract in the amount of $318,746 is for the design of the project only. Once we have that design contract, then we'll move forward for construction. But at this point, this is what the proposal is for the mayor to sign the design contract for Cedarwood Recreation. And with that, I'll answer any questions.
Jill, when you say the design, are you talking about design incorporating all of those bulleted elements or
That's
just?
correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
So can you clarify? So is the requirement that all of that fit into the budget or into the plan, or just that these are the things that we'd like? Tell us which of these things you can incorporate within the budget available.
That's correct. Our initial outreach with the community to gain their preferences for amenities there, these were prioritized. So in an ideal world, of course, all of those would go on the site, but those are what we're starting off. It gives us a good basis of how the plan, what elements would need to be planned in order to bring that there to the site. We will be continuing with public outreach on the site as the plan is moved along. We'll have some conceptuals so that the community can react to those and tell us if there's any refinement needed.
And so there is an existing structure on the property currently. Is the intent to tear the existing structure down and it becomes just an open space park? This is not there won't be a building or a facility there moving forward.
That's correct.
Okay.
And Jill or Sarah, refresh my memory, this is the one where we looked at repurposing the building and ultimately determined that we couldn't do anything worthwhile with it.
That is correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Have we chosen a consulting firm?
Yes, the design contract before you is for Bruce Dees and Associates, and they're a landscape architect firm, and then they have their sub consultants identified in the contract for all of the elements that are needed.
Would you mind bringing it up on a map? I I didn't have an address. And so it was very.
Oh,
I
absolutely.
wasn't familiar with the project, so.
I am not on Zoom, but I'm happy to.
We are not on the Zoom call. We could either log in or Caitlin, if you want me to navigate your screen to it, I'm happy to come up.
And this property, to orient you, is in the Chapel Hill area. It's just south of the Chapel Hill Road and Marketplace intersection. We'll bring that up for you though, so you can see.
Another question as that's coming up. So with the removal of the existing structure, is that part of the 1.5 million MACC? So that has the destruction, what's the right?
Demolition?
Demolition, thank you. The demolition cost and removal of all that materials will be part of our overall project.
That is correct.
Budget.
As well as all the permitting that's required, not only for the demolition, the new project as well. So that's the Cedarwood building. If we can scroll out just a little bit to kind of orient you to the site, you're going to have the lake is going to be on the right-hand side of the map. And that road, the main road that you're seeing on the west side or the left side is 99th Avenue. And then this is in approximately the 5th Street. So it's just about 3 blocks, I think, south of Chapel Hill Road.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
So a little bit of context on this property. I was wandering around during COVID and I noticed that this building existed. It was graffitied, littered. And I was wondering what the deal of it was. I found the manager and talked to them about it. They said that they have been trying forever to give it to the city. And I said, hand it to me. Let's get a community facility in this spot that neighborhood desperately needs. It's kind of an interesting building as it sits now. It's actually, if you're looking at it, you're looking at the second, I don't want to call it floor, but there's a sunken basketball floor that's there, and then 2 racquetball courts, and they're all accessed from behind. So there's no like front to it. It's all from behind, super sketchy. And because of that, and because of some crime that was happening there, they boarded it up and closed it down. So this is a great opportunity for us to turn this into a great community center that neighborhood desperately needs.
How big is the actual site, David? Was it an acre and a half? Smaller?
I would have to check on it.
It's a
Yeah,
acre and a half, 2 acres. It's not very big.
Decent size though for.
Yeah.
correct.
Yeah. But a lot of it's encumbered though. Like you couldn't rebuild what's there because it's right up against the creek.
Gotcha.
And then to clarify, when you look on here, we already have the funding for this project.
That's correct.
So one other thing when we look at the requirements or the goals for the community, I guess I'm concerned about long-term maintenance costs connected with that. Is maintenance a consideration and reducing maintenance cost consideration as part of their design criteria?
Yes, when staff looks through all of the plans, and that's from the outset, we look for the most maintenance-friendly options when given. So there will be changes to the site based on that so that it is more maintenance-friendly. It will be an additional facility to maintain and provide upkeep for. But yes, we do take that into consideration.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions?
And
And
this
let's-
was given
oh.
to the city.
Correct.
Correct. So this was given to the city. This wasn't something we purchased. We've been pretty fortunate recently here to have things donated to our city. I just wanted to acknowledge that. I'm not sure how often that happens in other cities, but we've been very fortunate with that.
And I did just look on the assessor's website and they don't list the property size on there, so I'll have to get back to you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, hearing none, can we get a motion on this? And however the motion reads, it doesn't need me to sign it. It could just be the city.
Is it Cedarwood Recreation or the Cedarwood property?
The development is for Cedarwood Recreation.
Okay, I move that we approve the design contract for Cedarwood Recreation.
I'll second that.
Okay, I have a motion to approve the Cedarwood contract and a second. Do we have any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? Great, great work on this, Jill. Appreciate it. It's gonna be a cool project. All right, we're gonna go into a discussion item, which is gonna be some council training with our great city attorneys, Greg, and I forgot your name. Oscar, that's right. I knew that. I knew it. So you have the floor.
All right, taking this PowerPoint up. All right, this is an opportunity, one of several that training opportunities that you as new council members are going to have had. I don't know how many of you attended the AWC training in December. Any of you did? Okay. If you did, maybe you met Oscar there. I don't know. Oscar was a presenter at that program. We're going to try to take about an hour tonight to go over some of the more significant topics that I hope you shouldn't be afraid of, that you should just accept the rules that we all need to follow in municipal government, and hope that some of these things that we're going to talk about, well, you'll get some muscle memory about them. And of course, I always believe that muscle memory is developed by repetition. So the more you hear about some of these things, even though you've had other training about it, it's all good. Don't worry about it. Because I think, again, in a couple of weeks, our insurance authority is going to be here, and they're doing a program on council member do's and don'ts. And some of the things we're going to talk about tonight, you're going to hear about there also. Of course, you'll also hear some different things. I asked my law partner, Oscar Ray, to assist me with this tonight. Oscar's, before he came to our law firm a couple of years ago, he worked with MSRC, and he was the guy that public officials, staff, the public would talk to or ask questions of. So he's got that approach, that angle that I hope will help answer your questions maybe better than I do. And in this, it's not my particular thing, but I try. I haven't done one of these for about 3 years because we haven't had any major significant changes on the council. So it's a good opportunity for me to once again look at these issues and try to talk about them in a way that's helpful to you. If you go to the next slide. I picked out several topics that I thought would be most significant for you to get a handle on early on in your council experiences. Learning about, talking a bit about your role, talking a bit about our form of government, some ethics and confidentiality requirements. You've all heard probably about appearance of fairness and how that operates with respect to your decision making. We're going to talk about that. We'll talk a bit about ordinances, resolutions, motions, and rules. There we are. Those are all the things that we have to keep in mind about how we do things. And the more you have a better handle on that, probably sitting here at these council meetings, you'll be more comfortable. And if you still have questions after we talk about this tonight, and we'll have an opportunity at the end of our program here to just field questions from you. So if any of you want to, I guess I would encourage you as we talk to jot down your questions. I think it'd be better if we kind of run through each one of these topics and then we'll field all the questions at the end. And we'll talk about the Open Public Meetings Act. What are the different aspects of that you need to have in mind? and the all-important public records issues for council members. Whether you realize it or not, you're already creating public records. And we want you to do that in a way that allows the city to be able to meet its requirements in responding to requests from the public, and to help you know what you need to do, so that when you get those requests from the city clerk that tells you we've gotten a public records request from from a citizen or whoever asking about a particular topic, do you have anything that you know how to be able to respond to that, where to look, and to be able to organize the public records that you're going to be involved with, so that you're going to be able to find it? This question. All right, let me just first say a little bit about Oscar and I. Ogden Murphy Wallace, the law firm that we're members of, we have a contract with the city to represent you, to give you advice in civil matters. Okay, the city has contracts with several law firms. We have a contract with a firm that does criminal prosecution. That is, if our police department issues citations, there's another law firm that handles that and goes to criminal court. We don't do that. Do you have a contract with a law firm that does criminal defense? The other side of the coin with requests to criminal citations. The city is responsible for funding not only the prosecution, but indigent defense, that people don't have the money to hire their own lawyer. The city has a responsibility to provide them with legal assistance. But we provide you, the city, with advice in civil matters. We work with all your departments, assisting them, answering their questions. We work with obviously the executive. We try to be available at all council meetings. I don't always come and sit here live. I used to did more coming live in the past because of the city's budget. We've tried to kind of help with the cost and participate more by Zoom, unless there's a really good reason for us to come. So we'll probably be continuing that for a while. But just to let you know, our firm, we represent municipalities throughout the state of Washington. We have our main offices in downtown Seattle, but we have an office in Wenatchee. We service cities in eastern Washington, as well as western Washington, north, south, east, and west. So that's there are 10 attorneys in our office. I think there's 10 right now that do that kind of work, and we have several others in Wenatchee that do that type of work. Our job, as I say, is to provide advice to everyone. I try to stay out of policy as much as I can, and that's not for me to say this is what you should do. I ask for you to tell me, here's what we would like to do. What are our options? How can we do it? Or do we really have to do that? And to deal with those types of questions, whether you should or you should not have certain provisions in your code with respect to zoning, housing, development, all sorts of things. That's your call. That's not our call. And if you see me trying to get in the way, become a councilman, don't be afraid to let me know that that's not your lane, Mr. Ruffstuttle. Please don't step in. So we'll get on to the first topic, and I'm going to turn it over to Oscar. He's going to talk about what it means to be an optional municipal code city and how our form of government works.
Thank you so much, Greg. And it's really a pleasure to be here. I see a couple of familiar names from my time at MRSC, so that's good to see. I also teach municipal law at Seattle University School of Law, teach that once every 2 years. And so I just really enjoy the training part of this job. I don't get to do as much of it now as I did when I was at MRSC. So it's just a real pleasure to be here. And my cities that I am city attorney for are Arlington, Duval, Langley, Eatonville, and Deer Park, which is a little bit north of Spokane. So let's talk a little bit about optional code cities. And it was really teaching municipal law that kind of got me dialed into this topic because it's a little bit esoteric, and I promise I won't take a long time with it. But at statehood, when the legislature formed laws regarding the formation of cities, they created 4 types of cities: first class, second class, third class, and fourth class cities, which was totally population based. And so if you were over 10,000 in population, you became a first class city and you were required to adopt a charter. And you, once you adopted your charter, you had broad authorities under state law, and the second, third, and fourth class cities were treated totally differently. They had fewer powers, and they only had the powers that were delegated them by statute, and those powers that are necessarily implied from that delegation. And that might seem like a nuance, but it actually makes a big difference. And so there's still 10 first class cities out there, and Seattle and Tacoma are 2 of the larger ones. And Aberdeen is actually a first class city because it had over 10,000 people when it formed. So over time, like at statehood, really what the mission of a city was relatively simple: building infrastructure, providing for public safety, and it was kind of a simpler time just in terms of the complexity of the issues that cities were forced to deal with. And over the years, cities were asked to do more and more. And so in the 1960s, the legislature adopted a comprehensive set of statutes entitled 35A of the RCWs. And they're called optional code cities, and we just call them code cities for short. And so Lake Stevens is one of 197 code cities that we currently have in Washington. And what's interesting about that is really in the last 50 years, almost every city that could be a code city has become a code city because it's such a efficient way of being able to carry out the business. You can get the most bang for your buck. And so the reason the charter, the first class cities are still around is that once you adopt a charter, you can't really get out of that charter. And so they continue to be charter cities, but first class cities and code cities are essentially the same in terms of the amount of powers that they have. And so there are 2 types of code cities, and Lake Stevens is a mayor council code city. So you have a elected mayor who, and then you also have an elected council. The other form is council manager, and that's a situation where there is an appointed city manager who is the head of the executive branch, so to speak, of the city. And so it's a different way of doing things. When I started practicing law, I worked with the city of Kirkland, which was council manager, and I always thought that's a really efficient way of doing it, because, you know, when you have a city manager who is appointed by the council, you really always have alignment between the executive branch and the legislative branch. To a certain extent, you don't really have that in a mayor council form. And what I learned over time, and I really had to teach the law school class to kind of figure this out, is that efficiency is not necessarily the overriding purpose of a democracy. And there are important checks and balances. And sometimes everything is hunky-dory because the mayor and the council are in alignment, and sometimes there's not. And that's really kind of the, the will of the people there. And those are when things get interesting for us as municipal attorneys, because we have to sometimes help navigate those differences in policy and priorities. So that's my overview of optional code cities, and I will turn it back over to Greg for the next slide.
Yeah, let me just add to that discussion. Why are all these cities becoming code cities? It's because code cities have all the power, all the authority that any other city has. Okay, and their authority is really only limited as restricted by state statute. We don't necessarily need to go look and find a statute that authorizes the city to do something. We need to go look to see if there's something that says, if you do this, this is how you have to do it, or what the constraints are in the box around that particular topic. But that's why everyone went to be a code city, because these other cities of these lower ranks, they had to go look in the statute book to find out what their authority was and what they had to do. So that's why we're a code city.
Yeah. Now, it may not always feel that way, because I heard earlier about all of the things that are coming down from the legislature in Olympia, but that's a different story and we won't open that can of worms right now.
All right. Let me talk a few minutes about the role of a council member. And frankly, this is my favorite topic for a new council member training, because I'm sure you all come in with expectations, right? About what your role is going to be, what am I going to do, how fast am I going to be able to do it, and what authority do I have to do it? The most important concept that I want all the new council members to really understand, because this is really a key, is you don't have any individual authority to do anything. I would challenge you to go look in the Washington State statutes or the code, our city code book, and find something that tells me that you as a city council member have the authority to make this happen as an individual. And there's really nothing. You are a member of a council, right? You're a crew member on this ship, and you all have to act together to accomplish something. And you're going to agree on many things, and sometimes you're not, but that's part of being a council member, and learning to be persuasive with your other council members, learning how to talk to them so that they work with you, not against you, or understand you and don't misunderstand you. These are all, I mean, I know it all sounds, yeah, that's a good talk, but it is so important. It is so important. And my experience with the council here at Lake Stevens over the years is that rule has really been appreciated. And one of the things when I go back to the office and people ask me about how was the council meeting and how did things go, one of the things I've practically always been able to tell them is there were good discussions. People didn't always agree on everything, but they walked out smiling at each other and shaking their hands and figuring out where to go from here, because that's how you get things done. And you're not an individual, you're a member of a group, and to get about anything, most everything done, you have to have a majority, right? And sometimes a super majority to do some particular acts according to state statute. So if you take your responsibilities and exercise your role with that in mind, understanding that's the case, you're going to do a great job. And it'll help you to do a great job. And I certainly want to see that and will do everything I can to help you do that. You do have authority as a group, right? To make a lot of decisions. You decide the budget, right? Right? Mayor doesn't decide that. He'll recommend to you a budget, working with his staff, but you have to approve and pass the budget. The city's comprehensive plan, you approve that, right? The city's planning staff and the mayor, they'll come to you and they'll give you with their recommendations and what options you have. But it's your call in the end. You're going to have to look at take your actions following the rules in the statutes, right? And in your code. But in the end, it's your decision where you have that decision-making authority to make. You're going to work with boards and commissions. Some of you are liaisons already to boards and commissions. One of the things that you'll find, if you've been on a commission, you probably already know this, is commissions like to have the council respect what they do, right? They're working hard at what they do. The planning commission may not end up voting. They can't make the final vote to pass the zoning ordinance, but they work real hard to give you a good recommendation. And respecting them and respecting their decision. Sometimes you don't always agree with what they have to say, but there are ways to do things that let them know you appreciated what they've done and take into consideration what they've done. And that's very important to your role too. And, we've heard a discussion in the last few meetings that was brought up by the person who spoke during citizen comment is there's some talk in the community that people don't understand how local government works. And when they don't understand, or if they hear things, they don't know the context of it. And the people on these planning commissions, or whether it's the planning commission or other city commissions, they're members of your community and they're advocate. They can be your advocate and speak well for you in the community. And I would encourage you have good relations with them and to work with them the best you can. Another role of council is you've got to work with the executive, right? And here is we're a mayor council form of government, as you were just told, and the people elect our mayor to be the chief executive of the city. He's the one that works with the departments and work with the staff. You do not have any direct supervisory authority over the staff. Okay? That goes to the mayor. The mayor, if you're unhappy with the staff, right? Or you think you question, talk to the mayor. There's your guy. He's the guy who needs to assess that problem and decides if anything needs to be done with it. The city, he has his rules about contacting staff and what you can do. And I know both Gene and the mayor certainly appreciate your following those rules, letting them exercise the authority over staff. If you guys have a problem with or want information from staff, they're going to be more than happy to see that you get that, but try to work through them, and it just makes local government work a lot smoother. Right? Oscar's going to talk about, this is a good one, ethics and confidentiality.
Yeah, so the state ethics code for municipal officers is in RCW chapter 4223. And a municipal officer is definitely a council member, definitely a mayor, definitely a city administrator, department head. It does, as you work your way further down the organizational chart, that line does come to a stop. So not all employees of the city are subject to the state ethics code, but certainly the council and the mayor and department heads are. And one of the really core things in the ethics code is the prohibition on a municipal officer from having what's called a beneficial interest in a city contract. And so that can mean your business. Your business cannot contract with the city because you would stand to profit by that relationship. Same thing is true for a spouse because Washington's a community property state. And so it would apply equally to that. Also applies to some more remote beneficial interests. So if you're a shareholder in a company that wants to do business with the city, there may be restrictions. There may be restrictions on that. And really the key thing about ethics issues is you don't have to answer all these questions. You need to be able to spot the issues so that you can then say to the mayor or to the city attorney, hey, I've got this issue and I need to figure out how I'm going to proceed on that and whether I can consider this or whether I need to disclose. You almost always need to disclose an economic interest and you might need to recuse yourself. But those are things that come up on a case-by-case basis based on the facts that come into play. The state ethics code has a category of interests called remote interests, which are like really literally less than a drop in the bucket. So like if you own Microsoft stock and the city wants to contract with Microsoft for IT services of some kind, then you probably have what's called a remote interest, and that probably does need to be disclosed, but you're not precluded necessarily from participating in that issue. There are also other prohibitions under state law, in addition to the beneficial interest in contracts. You cannot accept gifts for matters related to your municipal service. So what does that mean? And I think this is an area where there's a little bit of room for interpretation. I would say if you have a friend who always takes you to lunch once a month, and you were doing that before you were a council member, and you keep doing it while you're a council member, probably not something that's related to your municipal service. But if this same friend applies for a variance from the city and says, oh, hey, I scored some Taylor Swift tickets. I wonder if I can give you a pair. That probably would be a situation in which you would trigger the concern about gifts. Because even though you have that pre-existing relationship, you have a situation where a reasonable person could look at that scenario and say, yeah, no, it looks like that might have been a gift made to, even if it doesn't actually influence you, it creates the appearance of influence. And that's one of the things that the ethics code is intended to avoid. Using your position to secure special advantages for yourself or others. An example of that might be, your friend and neighbor comes to you and says, yeah, I'd really rather not have to get a building permit for that shed that I want to construct in my backyard. And you go to the building official and say, hey, can we not impose? I mean, that's kind of a crass example, but that's the type of thing we're talking about, where you would, as a municipal officer, would be putting yourself in a position where you're asking for something that wouldn't otherwise be available to another constituent or member of the general public. There's also a prohibition on accepting employment or engaging in business or professional activity where required or induced to disclose confidential information. That one doesn't come up that often, but I've always thought that might apply if you were employed by a real estate developer and they had a project that they wanted to bring into the city, and your employment might put you in a situation where you would be tempted or induced to disclose confidential information about maybe how the city would think about processing that development application. And so that's just a hypothetical example to kind of shed some light on what that provision is about. The final one, and this is kind of an important one, is disclosing confidential information gained through your position. And that's going to come up in two situations in general. It's going to be what you hear and what gets discussed during an executive session, because that's confidential, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. And also potentially what you learn through attorney-client privileges. And this one I have seen come up in situations where you might not agree with, where a council member might not agree with the course of action that the city is taking. And I've actually seen it where a council member actually revealed attorney-client confidences to an attorney for the opposing party because they didn't approve of what the city was doing. That's a violation of the ethics code too, because that's use of confidential information in a manner that is not consistent with your obligations to maintain that confidentiality. So those are just some examples. And that's what I have on ethics and confidentiality. And I'll turn it back over to Greg.
Okay. There was something I forgot to say is when we were talking about the role of the city attorney that I want to make sure I say and not forget. And that is, what about you talking to me? Different cities approach this in a different way. The rule here at the policy here at the city of Lake Stevens, at least the mayor has supported this, is that if you want to contact me with a question, if there's a question, you can do that. And I'll make sure that my email address and my phone number, you can get that through the city clerk. My only kind of box around that is that if I have a council member who calls me and says, okay, look at the council meeting, there's this issue, and you ask me questions about legal aspects about that, and I respond to you, is that when we're done with that phone call, I will send out an email to everyone, or ask Caitlin or Kelly to send an email, forward the email to everyone just to let you know I had a conversation with Council Member McManus today. He called me and this was this question, and here's how I answered it. And that's just so everyone knows transparency among the council, and that nobody comes with an advantage over the other and springs on, well, I talked to the city attorney. So, because I don't want that to happen, but I don't get a lot of calls from individual council members, but I do occasionally, but that's how I will handle them. Other things, if you have major things that you have legal issues on, I would encourage you to talk to Gene or to the mayor and say, hey, look, how do you think how should we contact the city attorney before we bring this on an agenda or do whatever? You certainly go through that role, but I will take your calls or try to respond to your questions, but that's the one cap that I put on that.
Can I ask a question?
Okay.
Is that conversation or is the follow-up email that you send out also considered client attorney?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And yes.
The thing I would add is that we represent the city as an entity. And so that's how the attorney-client privilege works. And so there's not an individual attorney-client privilege between us as attorneys and the specific individual that we're speaking with at the city. So that's a question that comes up sometimes. And yeah.
Okay, let's talk for a few minutes about quasi judicial matters and the appearance of fairness. I noticed on tonight's agenda, we had a public hearing, right? And it was dealt with an annexation issue. Annexation is a legislative matter. It's a policy decision, okay? You as a city or as a council, you're not generally required to approve an annexation request, right? And there's not a set of rules about the criteria that you necessarily have to use to approve that annexation. So the appearance of fairness doctrine or the statutory requirements relate to appearance of fairness don't relate to that kind of decision, a legislative decision. It relates to hearings that you will have from time to time that determine the legal rights or responsibilities or privileges of a specific person, right? And requires the application of your code provisions or statutes, and that issue is presented at a public hearing you're gonna, that's generally gonna relate to land use matters, right? Development issues, zoning issues, permits. The city has a hearing examiner system, like most cities in Washington do, where that hearing examiner is going to hear or take the testimony of most applicants for permits for development, right? So you're not the initial judicial officer that's hearing whether or not this applicant should be entitled to get an approval or get this permit. You're going to be the second stage. You're going to get a recommendation from the hearing examiner that's going to tell you, you know, here's all the testimony, here's all the exhibits that I looked at, and here's the facts, and here's how they line up with city code provisions and state law, right? That's and here's what I recommend, right? So when you get those types of hearings and have are going to make a decision in that context, these aren't legislative. You're like a judge who's having to decide, has this person and their application, do they meet all the requirements of the code? If they meet all the requirements of the code, if the hearing examiner says, yep, check off, check off, check off, in order to get this rezone, here's what they had to show. And I think they've shown it because here's the check off, here's the evidence that was presented. That comes to you, and maybe for whatever reason, this isn't a project that you're particularly excited about, right? You're particularly excited about. But one of the responsibilities of your position is that you have to view that request for that permit or that approval with a fair and open mind to determine whether or not that applicant has met the requirements of the code. That's how you make your decision. Can you say, no, I disagree, hearing examiner. I don't think that they met a particular requirement. You've got to be ready, and you've got to have information that shows that they didn't. And one of the problems is that under the state's land use requirements is that cities can only have one, what we call an open record hearing. That's where all the evidence comes in about whether or not this person should get this permit or this approval or not. The applicant comes to, goes to a hearing before the hearing examiner, presents all their evidence. People in the neighborhood who are concerned, or other citizens who are concerned, come and they present and they give evidence. That's called the record. And your decision has to be based upon the evidence that was presented at the record. So when that comes to you for what's called the closed record review, okay, you're not taking testimony, you're not receiving new exhibits, you're looking at what was presented to the hearing examiner at the open record in hearing, and your decision has to be made based upon that record. So if you have questions about you get, a quasi judicial matter is coming, you over the hearing examiner's recommendation. If you have questions about, if there are issues you may have about a particular finding made by the hearing examiner, and really he talks about maybe a document that was presented that shows some particular evidence that's important to the decision. You'll want to look at that probably before the public hearing, right? Because, or you want to make sure that the staff, when they present the matter, they can pull up that exhibit, that record, and you can look at it and you can satisfy yourself that, okay, the hearing examiner make a correct call or not. But it's important when you do closed records review, or in some very limited cases, have an open record hearing, that if you're going to sit there and participate in the decision, it has to look fair to everyone. And it has to look fair to the applicant, okay? You're now acting like a judge and not a legislator. If there's any evidence of bias, prejudice, you can be disqualified. If you should be disqualified and you don't disqualify yourself, then the decision of the council can be overturned. It can be invalidated. So it's really important that we follow those rules. When an applicant, there's a pending application to the city that you're aware of, I recommend strongly to all of you is, if you can, really don't talk about it with the citizens, right? People will grab you at the store and they'll say, hey, I know this thing's coming in down at the end, you know, and really the best thing you can do is say, you know, we're going to get information on that, and I have to keep an open mind on this. And if you got information, there's going to be a public hearing before they hear, you know, I encourage you to go do that and to present whatever it is you have to say. But making statements about whether you agree or not could disqualify you from participating in that hearing. A couple of things about the Appearance of Fairness Act, I think are important for new council members. Okay. We have a statute that says, if prior to declaring as a candidate for public office or while campaigning for public office, no public discussion or expression of an opinion by a person subsequently elected to public office on a pending or proposed quasi-judicial action shall be a violation of the Appearance of Fairness Act. So if you're out campaigning, don't worry about what you said in your campaign, all right? You kind of get a little fresh start once you're elected, okay? But you just have to be more careful. But the things that you maybe said in campaigning shouldn't come back to haunt you if a public hearing, quasi-judicial matter comes up involving that particular issue. Another statute says, a candidate for public office who complies with all provisions of applicable public disclosure and ethics laws shall not be limited from accepting campaign contributions to finance the campaign, including outstanding debts, nor shall it be a violation of the Appearance of Fairness doctrine to accept such campaign contributions. So if for some reason you accepted a campaign contribution from someone who subsequently while you're sitting here, makes an application for a particular development or whatever, that your acceptance of that campaign contribution isn't going to prohibit you from participating as a decision maker. One of the things that'll happen in quasi-judicial matters at the start of the public hearing, unlike tonight, because this was a legislative matter, is that I will ask several questions of you, And I will ask you whether or not you have knowledge of having conducted any business with any of the proponents or opponents of the proceeding, whether or not you have discussed the matter with any proponent or opponent of the, whether or not you have gained any special knowledge about the matter from anyone outside of the city staff and the reports that you have given, and whether or not you can sit there as a fair and impartial person, judge. And all I ask is that you want to answer those questions honestly. If you do get caught at the grocery store or whatever, and you do have a short discussion with somebody, the best thing you can do is say, yeah, I had a discussion with opponent so-and-so, and they did mention that they opposed it because of this, but this is how I respond. I told them, look, I have to keep an open mind and make a decision. If you say that and disclose what you said, that is a defense to a disqualification action. Okay, so if you do, just be honest about it. And if for some reason there is something that might disqualify you, I listen to what people say. There'll be opportunity for the public to challenge you. Okay, I asked, is there anyone in the audience who wants to challenge anyone here from city? And they'll have to express why they think that there's a legitimate, and I will let you know whether or not I think it's a legitimate challenge or not. Doesn't come up that often, but it does come up. And so the best thing that you can do as a council member is just know, okay, I've got this responsibility with respect to these types of proceedings, to be a fair and impartial person, and I'm going to save my comments about it until the appropriate time, right? And I'm going to try to wait till I've received all the information that's out there for me to receive about that. And the staff reports you'll get from our planning staff are really very good, and they give you a lot of good information. And I know they do the best they can to answer your questions. So that's what I wanted to tell you about quasi-judicial matters and the appearance of fairness. So we'll move on to the next topic, which is, again, this is my ordinances, resolutions, motions, and rules, right? Those are all the things that you're going to be dealing with as city council members and ask from time to time to approve. We're governed by statutes. Statutes tell us a number of things that have to be approved by ordinance, right? If we have to follow those statutes, sometimes you have the option of either approving something by resolution or by an ordinance. And generally, the rule that I follow is where you have the option. If it's something that is important for the public to not only know at the time, but to be able to find out quickly, fast, we'll do it by ordinance. And if it's something that belongs in one of the topics of our municipal code, we have to do that by ordinance to get it into our municipal code. One of the nice things in Washington law and most states is they allow cities to what we call codify your ordinances. That is to put them in a book, right? With basic headings and chapters and sections that allow not only city staff to look things, find things, allow the elected officials to know where it is, but allows the public, right? Our municipal code is up on our website. It allows any member of the public to look, to see what our code says about a particular topic. So it's a great thing to have. So anything that's of that nature, I always say, let's let's do an ordinance. Motions that we do our business here, right? At the council, a lot of it by motion. The mayor asked you several times tonight is, I have a motion to approve this? I don't know. I think you had some Robert's Rules training. The thing I always say about Robert's Rules is it's kind of designed for much larger bodies than city councils. And there's a lot of technicalities in there that we're never going to use and get caught up in. The city has its own procedural rules. Y'all got a copy of that? Okay, it's important and good for you that you read that. That'll help guide you as to how to move something forward and get something accomplished at our council meetings. But I always remind people that at the end, it says at any meeting, on a vote of 2/3 of the council members, you can override any rule, right? And that can happen. I always like that 2/3 provision. What does that mean? What's 2/3 of 7? Well, what is that? It's like 4 and 2/3 or something like that. So it really means 5. So, okay, well, I don't know why we didn't say that, but that's what it says. But I encourage you to read those, your local rules, understand them, know that they're there to help have order, keep everybody calm, right? That's a great thing to me about motions or motions to suspend a motion or motion to, all this stuff is really a way of allowing you to address one another in kind of a calm formal manner. And so that's all good for you. I was telling Councilmember McManus before the meeting started, being a new council member or being a council member is, it's like trying to drive across the trestle or I-5 in heavy traffic. You know what you want to do. You kind of want to get there and you want to, but you always can't do it. And you just have to be calm, right? And know you're eventually going to get there and drive safely and take advantage of the open spaces when you can. But following the rules will make your experience here much more enjoyable and will prevent a lot of unfortunate disputes that never should happen. And keeping that under control is very important. So that's my comments on ordinances, resolutions, motion, and rules. Oscar?
Okay, I have the next 2 slides. I'm going to move through those pretty quickly because I know we want to get to your questions. But next is the Open Public Meetings Act. I'm guessing all of you have had training on it and some of you have had training on it quite recently. But obviously, we err on the side of transparency and conducting our deliberations openly. And so I have kind of 3 overriding thoughts for you on the Open Public Meetings Act. First, and this gets confusing, there are 2 types of meetings under the Open Public Meetings Act. There's regular meetings and there's special meetings. And local governments come up with their own terminology for talking about things like workshops and committees of the whole and study sessions and things like that. But from an OPMA standpoint, if you are meeting at your regularly scheduled time, it's a regular meeting. And if you are meeting at a time or a place other than your regularly scheduled time or place, it's a special meeting. And the difference is important because a special meeting, you can really only take final action on an item that has been put on the agenda and the notice of special meeting. And you cannot come up with something different that you want to take final action on and do that at a special meeting. That's not allowed under the OPMA. Regular meeting is totally different. You are required to post an agenda 24 hours before your meeting. But if you decide on your way to the council meeting, or if somebody decides during a council meeting that they want to add something to the agenda, they can make the appropriate motion. And if the council agrees, then that gets added to the agenda. And it's because that's your standing meeting time. And so theoretically, at least the public is on notice that anything can happen at a regular meeting. So when local governments create things like study sessions and workshops, they'll often say, well, we won't take action during a study session. That's a local decision that's being made. That's not a requirement under the OPMA. So I think that's just sort of an important distinction and hopefully helps clarify what the different terminology means. Regarding executive sessions, obviously we allow for executive sessions in just a limited set of circumstances. One of which that's very common is discussing litigation or legal risks. And that's an opportunity for your legal counsel to tell you about what some of the issues might be, where there are exposures, risk exposures, whether a particular lawsuit should be settled. And obviously you need to have that type of discussion, not in an open setting, so that so that your opponents in the lawsuit don't have insight on what the city's doing. But the important thing to remember is you cannot take action in an executive session. It's a time during which you can talk about and evaluate, and you can't take final action. And I'll give you an example that just came up for me recently for a client who will remain nameless, but there was a council vacancy, and one of the reasons you can go into executive session is to discuss the qualifications of candidates for appointment to an elected position, i.e. filling a vacancy. And the question I got was, so we'll have our discussion in executive session and then we can just come out and bring a motion, right? And the answer to that is probably not, if you just bring a motion and then go straight to your vote, because it creates the impression that, oh, while you were in executive session, you must have already decided who you wanted to appoint to fill that vacancy. Otherwise, you wouldn't have had to have discussion in open. Otherwise, you would have had to have discussion in open session. And so when that happens, really what the council should do is, when they're in executive session, really just talk about the qualifications, pros and cons for each candidate, but nobody should really say, oh, I'm thinking that I prefer this person to fill the vacancy. That should be a discussion that happens in open session.
You see me chuckling a little bit, but that was an issue in our sewer litigation when the city passed the ordinance to assume the district. It came out of, we had an executive session, came out of executive session, and the council immediately approved the ordinance without discussion. And of course, that was the argument that the district made in the case, was that, well, they must have colluded in the executive session to decide that they were going to, everyone was going to vote in favor of that ordinance, which didn't happen. And there wasn't any evidence to show that it happened. And the court ruled in our favor on that particular issue and dismissed the district's claim that the ordinance was invalid for that reason. But Oscar's advice about, it's probably better to have at least some discussion of why I'm going to support that motion because it does. It helps the public have in their perception and transparency about what you've done. And they come to some conclusion that they shouldn't come to because they weren't told.
Yeah. The other part about executive session is, typically, if I'm in an executive session, I will make sure that the discussion stays within the scope of the executive session basis that you're operating under. And it's human nature to just start talking and the direction of the conversation morphs. And so there's kind of a watchdog role. Sometimes it can be the mayor, sometimes it can be the city attorney, but that's something that we keep our eyes on. And then my last point on open public meetings is beware of serial meetings. And I'm guessing all of you are familiar with the concept of serial meetings. They sometimes happen with the help of technology, i.e. social media or emails, but not necessarily. It can also just happen when two people are talking and then they talk to two people and then so on and so on. And so it's just important to keep in the back of your mind, have we included a quorum of the council in a discussion that needs to happen in an open public meeting? And if you're feeling like you're moving in that direction, then the remedy is to stop and wait until it can be an agenda item at your next council meeting.
You never want to, prior to the meeting, call up every other member of the council to talk about an issue that's on the agenda and how do you feel about it, and have discussion about that. If you do that, you're violating the Open Public Meetings Act, and that could cause a problem. So save that kind of discussion for when we're here and having a meeting.
Okay, and then the last slide that I have is Public Records Act. Hopefully, you've also had your Public Records Act training either at the AWC, Elected Officials Essentials, or MRSC does some good trainings on that as well. Just want to emphasize, almost anything is a public record. It doesn't really matter what format it's in, if it's prepared. This is an acronym for the word POUR, but if a record is prepared, owned, used, or retained by a local government, then it's going to be a public record, and that's true regardless of the format.
And that includes things that you do as council members.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And so Public Records Act is a sprawling topic, and so I just have a few tips that I'm going to close with. And one really important tip is that if you receive a request for records from a constituent, make sure you realize, even if they don't say, I hereby request this under the Public Records Act, it might be a public records request. And if you think it might be a public records request, it's best to forward that request on to your public records officer so that they can process it accordingly, so that you have a record of the request and the fact that it was processed in accordance with the Public Records Act. Because there have been cases where somebody has communicated what was later decided by a court to be a public records request, and the agency didn't respond. And then obviously they ended up having to pay fines and attorney's fees as a result of that mistake. Try not to create public records on your personal devices or personal accounts. And if you do, forward that to a city server or to a city account so that the city has a record of it. And obviously a corollary to that is if you can use a city device or a city account, that is the simplest thing to do to make sure you're complying with your record retention requirements, because record retention is really important to Washington agencies under the Public Records Act. That's an area where agencies have a lot of exposure.
Use your city provided devices for anything related to city business. It'll make not only our life so much easier here, it'll make in the end your life so much easier. Some of the more traumatic experiences I've had is having to deal with a city council member who has to have his personal laptop examined to see what's on there. Because they use their city laptop, their personal laptop for city business. And they were reluctant to want to show it to anybody, but the requester can get a court order to have it examined. And you don't want to go down that road. You really don't. So I encourage you to do that, not only for your own personal benefit. It's simply, there's no way that the city and its records people can know where these records are and to find them in a reasonable time unless they're on city-controlled devices. And that even would include, besides, the phone or laptop, it's even things like the city website. Use the city website as opposed to, if you can, talk to the clerks about the appropriateness about how it can be posted rather than posting something on Facebook or some other thing, because the city has no control over that. But what you may post can be a public record. If you're doing it, I'm as council member so-and-so, and here's this, it can cause a real problem. So I encourage you, use what you're provided for by the city if you can.
Yeah, it's also okay when you have what's called a transitory public record, which means a record that doesn't have any value once you're done using it. You can practice, good computer hygiene and sure that you're going through and deleting emails that aren't necessary anymore, for the purposes. And those are typically things like scheduling issues and things like that. The last piece of advice I have under the Public Records Act is it's always okay, and people just don't do this very much anymore. It's always okay to pick up the phone and call somebody and have a conversation. And sometimes that's the best way of solving a problem. It doesn't create a public record when you do that. When you leave a voicemail, it does create a public record, but the phone call can be really helpful, not just in terms of not creating more records than necessary, but also I find it sometimes the most efficient way of getting things done. So people call me sometimes and I pick up the phone and they're like, "Oh, I wasn't expecting you to answer." And so it's old school, but it is one good way of getting things done efficiently and avoiding creating unnecessary public records. And so that's all I have. And I think we can start with questions.
Yeah, if there's any questions you have on any of the issues that we've brought up tonight, or anything else that's on your mind?
I have a question.
Greg, could I just add one thing as your friendly public records officer in the room? A lot of people don't know this, that any fines or judgments that are paid out in public records litigation comes directly out of our general fund. So I just want that to be really clear, and we're very protective of that. And so if you have any questions or need any support around public records at all, please come to us, come to myself or Kelly or Brandon. We are here to support you.
Right.
How long should we extend the meeting?
Great question. How long we,
Executive session.
Right.
how long are we looking on that?
Max, what do you think? 20 minutes?
I can make anybody.
20, yeah, we're gonna need probably 20 minutes.
Let's extend the meeting to 8:30 just to be safe.
I move to extend the meeting to 8:30.
Second.
Okay, I got a motion to extend the meeting to 8:30 and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? All right, we are extended to 8:30. Any questions for these two fine gentlemen on their many points of wisdom?
I also have some of those, but I'll let the new council members go first.
So I'm sure you probably have already heard last week after, and I'm going to lead with some humility here. Last week after the council meeting, I made a social media post that kind of went over what the council made action on that meeting. After Gene gave me a call, he advised me, to not do that, not to be careful and not to engage on social media. So part of what I ran on in my campaign is information dissemination. And I have been very consistent with being able to provide the public updates about things that have been discussed in council meetings and other things, activities that are going on in the community. And so after I talked with Gene, I did understand a part of what I said that could have been misconstrued. So I totally understood that. But I want to make sure, that I'm still able to provide information to my constituents. So when it comes to social media in general, I typically use Facebook. I know on one of the surveys yesterday at the Parks Department, they said 53% of people in Lake Stevens got their information from social media from the city. So I thought that was really interesting. And I think that with the misconceptions of transparency and all of that, it's really important that we, make things clear for people. So I want to get some guidance on that because I want to make sure not only do I understand, but everyone understand what those processes and restrictions might be.
Yeah, I heard about that issue, and there are, I think, some ways that we can help you accomplish what you want to do, but do it within the city records retention system. And whether, it's even on our own website, having a section that allows for council members to make some expression about the meeting or about what they felt about it. And that might be a viable option if you want to use that type of social media. Putting messages out on social media that you're speaking as a council member and your viewpoint on things of how those are public records. And so how do we retain them? I mean, there are ways that you can do screenshots, I guess, or whatever, and they go to the deposit them with Caitlin or her. Maybe that's an option. I know. I think it's probably something that we should talk about. But there are ways to accomplish what you want to accomplish. But
with social media or not?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I think let's work on that at the moment. If you do that, like for this post that was done, I would suggest, if it's still there, and it's all, and even with Facebook, I don't use it anymore, but I understand you can. They got everything saved, and you can ask them to retain it. But it would still be better for access to take a screenshot or whatever and provide that to Caitlin and her team, so they can maybe develop a depository where they can put that kind of stuff, so that we don't lose it and we can provide it if we get a request. Did you have a comment?
Just that we want to make sure that we're following the Public Records Act, but also providing opportunities for you to connect with citizens. I think we'd be more than happy to brainstorm and look at different options, but we really have no mechanism to get in and retain the records that are being created in the way they're being created right now. So we'd love to come up with some solutions.
So does that is that because I'm using my campaign Facebook page to do those, that makes it me representing the city when I'm making those statements? And if I were to do that just with strictly information, would that be different than adding my 2 cents or why I voted?
Unfortunately, well, once you are elected to public office, you're not Joe Citizen anymore.
Right.
I'm sorry, but you're not, and you have some restrictions on you that you're going to have to abide by simply because you volunteered to assume this public office. And if you make this post as I'm council member Edwards and I, here following through it, I want to tell you what happens at council meetings and what's on the agenda. Here's what happened here, or here's my feelings about it, or whatever. That is a public record. That's a document created by you as a council member with respect to city business. And anything you do or say that respects city business will create a public record. So it doesn't matter.
It might be, just not to interrupt you, but just, it might be something that we need to talk about, because prior to coming to tonight's meeting, I sat and watched Nate Nearing's county council recap of this week's events on Facebook. So they're doing it in other jurisdictions.
Yeah.
So we need to figure out a way to do
Yeah,
it here
yeah.
if people want to do it here. I
Yeah.
guess.
I'm sure there's a way we can figure it out. But
Hey, Greg, along with that, if they make those social media posts, are we also subject to the First Amendment rights issues? Such as if someone makes comments on there that they don't like, you can't erase them. They still have, so for example, on Tasha's post the other day, if someone made comments on her post that she didn't like, she can't erase any of those comments.
I think there's a US Supreme Court case on that suggests yes. I think it's a gray area. I think what is happening here is we have an intersection of important interests. We have the First Amendment rights of a council member, and we have the need for the city to make sure that it is complying with and retaining the Public Records Act and retaining records. And we have technology issues that are also sort of getting superimposed on that. And, you know, my hunch is that it might take some time to have more dialogue and navigate those issues and figure out how can we get to a point where council members are able to interact with their constituents and do it in a way that works from a public records and records retention compliance standpoint.
yeah, the problem is that the Public Records Act was enacted at a time that preceded all of this,
That's
right? And the legislature didn't think about all of this stuff.
Yeah.
And now here we are. We have this very this Public Records Act that is very liberal as to what is a public record and the responsibilities of public officials with respect to it. You know, if you post this message on, is it Facebook? 'Cause
Yeah, Facebook.
Facebook, your comment, right? Your statement's the public record. At least in my legal opinion, and that if somebody comments about that, it's like the same as if that person wrote an email to the city, or they send us a letter saying, I saw Council Member Edwards' comment and here's what it's now a public record that we retain. And so trying to get rid of those could potentially make the city liable for not retaining public records. And as was mentioned, it's not you as the council member or the creator of that who's going to get in trouble for that happening. It's the city and us and it's general fund that'll face the budget, paying the penalty if one is to be paid. So it's important that we respect this stuff and try to find a way so you can do what you want to do and still we can manage this very complex public record system.
Hey, Greg, for sake of time, I know everyone's got questions and this is a great subject to talk about. I want to give Angie a shot and then.
I haven't spoken yet either.
I know, but we need to move into the executive session.
I prefer that you allow me to
Okay,
ask this
yep.
question.
Okay, Angie and then Kim.
Thank you. I just want to really quick thank Oscar and Greg. Because this is such an important topic and there's discussion, I do wonder if we want to put this on a future workshop agenda so that we can talk about it more thoroughly without the pressure of time and executive session coming. But I would like to continue speaking about this.
Great idea. Kim.
Thank you. I was going to say the same thing and follow up a little bit further with Caitlin. When we do that, can you please bring us numbers? I know we've reviewed them on how much the city is spending on public records requests, how much of our staff time, so we can develop a streamlined way to do this that doesn't overburden you guys when you get those requests and our budget. Yep.
Perfect.
Oh, and I had a couple questions too. Do we need to tack on for that?
Go quick.
So the first one, so these are kind of like prenup questions. They're uncomfortable, but I'd rather address them now when and hope that we never get there. First one, budget. Greg, you kind of answered this for me last year, but I want to make the line as bright as I can. Statutes, our past ordinances, all talk about the budget at the fund level. Then I've seen some stuff, I believe even MRSC alluded to doing it at that level, but more detail is possible. At what point, if any, do we butt up against the executive branch's, supervisory role or contract authority? If we go in and line item pull funding for something, can we do that? Or is that encroaching on the executive branch's power? So I really want to know where that line is.
Well, the executive is responsible for implementing your policies, including your budget, right? And I have seen, I was city attorney for one jurisdiction for a number of years whose budgets were very detailed. And there was a conflict with the mayor. It was a bad situation. It wasn't a good situation. And their budgets contain pages of, okay, we're appropriating this for this, at this fund level for this type of stuff, but the mayor can't do this, he can't do that, he can't do this, or, blah, blah. And you can do that. It's the mayor's responsibility to carry out your budget within the authority that it gives to him.
Okay,
right?
that answers that one. Yeah.
So if you want to put some restrictions in some areas or whatever, you have the right as a council to do that. And my only comment is that fund level budgeting is
prudent.
Is preferred, especially, and it certainly helps maintain good relationships. And the mayor on his hand, that's why he tells you what I'm gonna, what I'm doing and what I'm spending on and how we do it. This open conversation between the two is best. But yes, you have that authority as a council.
Okay, and then really quick, the second one for the quasi judicial hearings. So I had an instance last year where there was a record. I leaned on that record in my decision. The applicant was very unhappy, started expressing comments about how the hearing examiner had made mistakes. And I wasn't quite sure how to handle that. By that point, was it on them to correct those mistakes at the earlier level before it reached us kind of in an appellate function? Or if they're saying, hey, there's a legitimate mistake here with the way the examiner applied this, wrote it up. I mean, it sounds like that cannot come into the record.
If a person doesn't like the hearing examiner's decision, right? That can be appealed. And if the record you get as a council, if somebody thinks it contains errors and but yet you have this there and your responsibility is to make a fair and appropriate decision based on the record. If they think your then decision is based on faulty information, again, they can appeal it. That's what the Land Use Appeal Act is there for. Of course, the burden is going to be on them then to explain to the court why this information got to the hearing examiner and you didn't submit your contradictory. That's your fault. That's what the court is going to tell them. That's your fault, sir. I'm sorry you didn't timely do what you needed to do. We have the court, just like you, has to make its decision based upon the record that it receives. And unless there was some error where this person tried to get stuff in and the hearing examiner wouldn't let him bring it in and should have, they're probably going to lose. But
okay, thank you. Yeah.
And just maybe add on one point, when it comes to you, you're not acting as appellate at that point.
Yeah.
there would be a reconsideration period before it comes to you, which would be on that applicant. If they disagreed with the findings of fact, conclusions, they can ask the hearing examiner, hey, can you reconsider this one element before it advances? That did not happen in
Okay, good
case
to know.
you're talking about, so.
All right, thank you.
You snooze, you lose.
That seemed fair to me, but I wanted to double check. So,
Okay,
thank
great.
you.
Hey, let's move on to the executive session. We're going to have litigation or potential litigation per RCW 4230-110. If we could clear the room for those who are not involved in this discussion. We will return at 8:30 with no action to follow.
So just 15 minutes. Mayor, 15 minutes instead of 30. Okay.
All right. Well, Okay, can I get a motion to adjourn?
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, let's adjourn.